a notorious killer who influenced many horror movies and fiction. Ed Gein, born on August 27, 1906, in La Crosse Country, Wisconsin. Gein's early life is a reason on why he turned out the way he did. Ed is the youngest out of 2 children from his father George and his mother Augusta. George and Augusta both owned a grocery store together. Despite them working together when it came down to their children, they wasn't really that good. George was an addictive alcoholic and Augusta was domineering, religious, and was verbally abusive to her children. Despite the verbally abuse Ed would get from his mother, he would idolize her, and he idolized her so much that his elder brother Henry would start to get concerned about him and would start to go after his mother while Ed was watching. Augusta raised Ed and Henry to believe that the world was full of evil, and that drinking and immortality were the instruments of the devil. Augusta wanted to protect her family from evil which she believed lurked around every corner, that she insisted that they move from La Crosse, that she actually called the sinkhole of filth, to Plainfield, Wisconsin, so that is what they did. In 1914, George and Augusta sell their grocery store in La Crosse and move their family to Plainfield on an isolated farm. Even when they moved, Augusta made sure they moved outside the town because she believed living in town would corrupt her 2 sons. As a result, Ed only ever left his family farmhouse to go to school, and when he was at school he didn't get treated a lot better there either. Ed was always an easy victim of bullying because he was socially awkward, had a lazy eye and a speech impediment. In April 1940, Ed is now an adult, but his father tragically passed away from heart failure. The death really didn't affect Ed too much because he was so close to his mom and idolized her very much. Later on in May of 1944, Ed and his brother Henry decided to go outside their farmhouse and set a bush on fire so they can burn away marsh vegetation, but they lost control of the fire, and Ed supposedly said he lost track of his brother, and when he and the police came upon his brother's body, Henry was already dead from mysterious circumstances. Now nobody at the time suspected that Ed may have killed his brother, but after the reputation he gained a little bit later on his life. Some people question to know, did his brother really die from mysterious circumstances, or was he murdered by his own brother? One theory that people have is that Ed may have killed his brother because there was no burns on his body, he was quite far away from the fire, so it couldn't have been smoke, and when he was found with bruises on his head. Also, when the police came and called a search party, Ed brought them directly to his brother's body, even though he said earlier that he lost him, but there was no investigation done on his brother's death, so we can't confirm if he murdered him or not. Sadly, a year later, on December 29, 1945, the one person that Ed cared about the most, his mother, died at 67 from several strokes. And just like that, in 5 years Ed lost every single person in his family, and he was by himself for the first time. After his mom died, everybody says that this is what made him do what he did. Now that Ed was by himself, he would start to board up the rooms that his mother would use the most and make basically a shrine for her. Ed would start to sink into his obsessions. He would fill his days by learning about Nazi medical experiments, studying human anatomy, and consuming porn. He never dated any women in his life and was starting to read horror novels. He began to indulge in his sick fantasies, but it took a long time for anyone to realize it. In fact, for a whole decade, no one thought about the Ed Gein farm, but everything changed in November of 1957. When a local hardware store owner named Bernice Wardens vanished, leaving nothing behind but bloodstains. Bernice was a 58-year-old widow, who was last seen at her store. Her last customers, you may ask? Well, none other than Edward Gein, who went into the store to buy a gallon of antifreeze. The police went straight to Ed's farmhouse to investigate him, but when they got there they had no clue that they was going to see so much horrific things. As soon as they walked into Ed's house they found Bernice Wardens in the kitchen dead, decapitated, and hung by her ankles from the rafters. There was also countless of bones, both whole and fragmented. They found skulls impaled on his bedposts, and bowls and kitchen utensils made from skulls. Worse than all of that, they found household items that Ed had made from human skin. Police found chairs made from human skin, a waste bucket made of skin, leggings made from human leg skin, masks made from faces, a belt made of nipples, a pair of lips being used as a window shade drawstring, a corset made of a female torso, and a lampshade made from a human face. Along with the many skin items, police found various dismembered body parts including fingernails, 4 noses, and the genitals of 9 different women. They found the remains of a woman named Mary Hogan, a tavern owner who disappeared in 1954. So during the time of the decade from the time Ed's mother died to him killing Bernice Wardens, he was not only learning anatomy and learning Nazi medical experiments. He went to 3 different local graveyards looking for females' body that resembled his mother, and the ones that resembled her he dug the bodies up and brought them to his farmhouse. Ed admitted to everything. He admitted to collecting bodies, but he also admitted that the reason he did that was so he can create a women's suit so he can become his mother and crawl into her skin. He was arrested on the spot, and in 1957 he went to trial and was found not guilty by reason of insanity and was sent to the Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, where he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Then at the same time mysteriously his farmhouse was burned down to the ground. 10 years later, Ed was deemed fit to stand trial and was convicted of the murder of Bernice Wardens. He was never tried for Mary Hogan murder because the state allegedly saw it as a waste of money. Ed would spend the rest of his life in hospitals until his death July 26, 1954. To this day Ed only admitted to murdering Wardens and Hogan, but when the police went to his farmhouse there was more than 40 bodies found, but he only claimed he robbed those bodies from graves. We may never get that answer, but what we know is Ed Gein inspired many movies such as the 1960 movie Psycho, the 1974 Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the 1991 movie The Silence of the Lambs. Many of movies that fascinated and horrified people for decades, but not like the true story. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment and share.